everyone, I am the Tax Pro, and today we're going to talk about creating an expense in QuickBooks Online. An expense is going to be a transaction where you have purchased something and you are paying for it at the time that you've purchased it. For example, you've gone to a store and you are purchasing office supplies. You run your card at the time that you purchase your office supplies. You have paid for it at the time that you have purchased it. Okay, so you're not going to use an expense if it's something where you've bought something and you haven't paid for it yet. In that case, you would use a bill. So, in order to create an expense, there's a couple of different ways you can get there. I'm going to use the plus new button just because it's everywhere when you're working within QuickBooks Online. You can go under vendors and click expense. I'm also going to show you how to navigate to the expense area from the vendor section. But first I'll show you how to complete your expense. So we're going to go ahead and add a vendor. Let's just call this Bluebird Technologies. Oops. You can put in the email, all the other information on the vendor. I'm not going to go over this right now. I'm just going to go ahead and plug in the actual name of the vendor. Now the payment account, this is going to be what account did you pay that expense from? We obviously didn't pay it from inventory. That would be kind of crazy. We are going to pay it either from checking. You can also select credit cards when you're in here. You could select a savings account. Anything that is either a bank account or a credit card, you can go ahead and select from this screen. Payment date is going to be the date that you paid this particular expense. You can also add a payment method. So you can say I paid this via a credit card, a debit card, check, cash. You can add new. For example, I'm going to say I paid it with a debit card. Reference number. You can use the reference number if you have something like a receipt that has a number on it. You don't have to include a reference number. Excuse me. I think it's a good idea to include a reference number if you are working with a vendor where you want to be able to identify the particular bill number or a reference number that they have provided, so you can call them back later and say, hey, I purchased this item. Here's the receipt number that you need to look it up with. I need to return it or something along those lines. You don't have to have a reference number in here. I'm not going to put a reference number in here and it will still allow me to save it. So then we are going to select what category. This is just something that is going to be based off of your chart of accounts. You have office supplies, for example. You'll see that I don't have office supplies included in my chart of accounts right now. This allows me to add an account if I would like to. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to find a category let's just say that this is cost of goods sold. So I'm purchasing inventory here. I'm just going to immediately turn around and sell it. And maybe I don't purchase inventory or I don't track inventory within QuickBooks Online. Okay, so I can put cost of goods sold. This is specific goods that I use when I go perform the services that I'm performing. This is going to cost me $175. You can add a memo if you would like. So if you want to make a note on, we can say, this was 3A759. So that's the number of the product maybe. And I can put like the condition or something along those lines. You could also put that in the description if you wanted to. I'm just going to put it in the memo. You could also put something in here like if you have to provide a PO number, you could put the PO number that you used if you're not actually tracking POs within QuickBooks Online. If you have like a memo for a specific customer, but maybe you don't track by job in here, you could put, for Smiths, something along those lines. Attachment, you can actually upload an attachment of your receipt if you would like. And then you can do a save and close. So here we have a expense coming out of the checking account. And it's going to go into cost of goods sold. You could also put it into inventory. So don't assume that just because you are creating an actual expense, that it's always going to hit the expense account, which means it's always going to hit the P&L. You can actually go in and create an expense, but you could have it hit like a asset account, such as inventory or something along those lines. So it's not necessarily going to hit the expense portion of the P&L, even though it's called an expense within QuickBooks Online. Now, in order to navigate there from a different area, you can also navigate from the expense tab. So if we go into this expense tab, this is where you have expenses, bills, vendors, contractors, mileage, etc. You can come here and you could create a new transaction and navigate to expense here. You could go to vendors and select a specific vendor. And then within there, you could create an expense. But if you are in the expense area of QuickBooks Online, you'll be able to navigate to new transaction and create an expense there as well. The plus new button just allows you to create it no matter where you are within QuickBooks Online. So that's how you create an expense within QuickBooks Online. Remember, you want to make sure that you have the vendor assigned. You want to make sure that you're categorizing it properly. Just because it is called an expense does not mean that it is only going to allow you to add these items or these purchases to an expense account, okay? You could also end up adding it to a liability account or an asset account. All sorts of different accounts are available within that expense tab. Okay, so think of an expense more as I spent money somewhere, and then you tell QuickBooks Online where that money went, even if it went to something like a loan and not necessarily an expense. So if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time.